Hello everyone, and welcome to the IBM Z Tailor Fit pricing session for today. My name is Diego Besone. I'm the Director of IBM Z Software Worldwide Sales, and I'm joined today by Joshua Stiles from 21CS, who's going to show you the tooling that 21CS has to manage this tailor fit pricing methodology that we have in place today. At the end of the session, there will be time for Q&A, so please make sure you take note of everything you might want to ask, and both Josh and I will be available live to answer any of your questions. So let me get started with tailor fit pricing and where this is coming from. So to help explain why we really believe that something new was required, let me show you how pricing evolved on the platform. For the first 30 years or so, we sold IBM Z software at the full capacity of the machine. And then, in the late 90s, we introduced the notion of subcapacity pricing, meaning that we're not charging software to the full capacity of the machine anymore, but rather to the peaks reached month by month. And that was built on the so-called rolling 4-hour average methodology. It is important to know that the rolling 4-hour average methodology was premised on a customer utilizing their machines across the month for around 90% of the time. Very, very high levels of utilization. Given the workload profiles, and they were mostly batch-oriented, with negligible, if any, digital impact, that model worked very well. White space was available at predictable times, and so a customer was able to plan to utilize that white space for other pieces of work and low priority pieces of processing. And as such, the high utilization levels were achievable. But of course, it is no longer the case that white space emerges at predictable times. The world of IT is almost unrecognizable from 20 years ago, and our clients are now far more focused on the requirement to deliver processing in real time with instant responses based on what their business is actually demanding today. And the participation of the mainframe platform in a connected architecture, what we call a hybrid architecture, is now driving a lot of transactions at unpredictable rates and at unpredictable times, making the planning and the use of white space extremely difficult to do. This, coupled with the inevitable spikes, is driving peaks higher, and as a consequence, our client utilization rates are far lower on average than the 90% number that you can see here. This is why IBM has taken a significant step back and fundamentally reviewed our commercial approach to IBM Z software to ensure the IBM Z platform is as commercially competitive for the digital demands of today's business requirements as the technology that, of course, already is. And this is why we're considering this as the next generation of our IBM pricing around software on the mainframe. We call it tailor fit pricing, and it looks in many ways very different to what we've done previously. So let's take a look at the evolution of our clients' workload profiles. Clients are, all of them, transitioning to the right of this chart. And if you look at the consumption here, for all of these three scenarios, billing based on the rolling 4-hour average would be very, very different for each of these three scenarios. But if we're using a consumption methodology to measure and bill for what's going on here, then the cost will be exactly the same for any of these three scenarios. This is one of the reasons why we had to change from the previous model to one that accommodates these peaks and these variations in CPU consumption so that we can charge accordingly, more cloud-like, and so it would help customers run the workloads based on their business demands and not really have to limit their capacity to their billing aspects. So this is how tailor-fit pricing for IBM Z was created. It's a consumption-based software licensing model. Like I said before, works pretty similar to the way pricing on the cloud works. It covers all of IBM software available on the IBM Z platform. both MLC, the monthly license charge, as well as the OTC, the one-time charge or perpetual licensing. Now, one of the other reasons that we came up with this new pricing structure is that we really wanted to help our customers grow. And in order to grow, they need to have predictability into what's going to happen when the workload grows, and they need to have the tools to be flexible enough to grow as required. So we believe that tailor-fit pricing, and actually we've seen the numbers and we have now enough experience to analyze what's been going on with our clients, and definitely our clients are growing with tailor-fit pricing much more than they were before. This means that they are trying new things now on IBM Z. This concept of workload repatriation, where they're actually bringing back workload to the Z platform because it's not only more convenient, but more flexible, but this allows them to use the latest technology available to them on Z, such as, for example, AI. So this is what really helped make tailor-fit pricing a success so far. And we say it's a success because every geography in the world right now has clients running tailor-fit pricing. We find this solution across 16 different industries, at least 38 countries around the world, all sorts of sizes of customers. We have clients that are really small, we have customers that are really large, and all of them can benefit from the right tailor-fit pricing structure. And by the way, we work very closely with analysts, the leading analysts in the industry and ISVs, and we not only got great feedback from them about this solution, but they have also embraced tailor-fit pricing for their own solutions and their own offerings. So this is telling us that we are down the right path and that we need to continue working on improving and enhancing this solution. So with tailor-fit pricing consumption, now our clients can take full advantage of the hardware that they own. There's no more capping. Capping was a typical practice that all of our mainframe customers had. And this was based on the fact that they wanted to limit the billing or the charges for their consumption. And of course, this limited their flexibility. Peaks and spikes were seen as a penalty. And this is exactly the opposite of what we want to do, right? We want customers to peak, to spike, to grow. So we had to remove that penalty. And also in this way, it's easier to demonstrate when there's more expense on the platform. It means that it's actually driving more business. So instead of artificially capping and making every day look the same, independently of how the business is performing, now you can more closely align your business performance with the actual consumption of your applications. And in fact, this can even help you fine-tune and adapt those applications to these business requirements. So tailor-fit pricing can really help you to re-architect and manage this environment based on business results rather than just the billing. The other thing that we did to entice growth is to make it very competitive when you go above your baseline or your agreed day-to-day consumption and you get into this growth area, so that you're really not penalized for bringing more applications, for bringing more workload, or for growing your existing workload on the machine. So this additional growth and the price per MSUs for this MLC that is considered growth is very, very competitive and convenient for you. So this is the other reason why customers are very happy with it and are really embracing tailor-fit pricing. We provide, along with this, an annual allowance with the ability to roll the unused processing into the following year. So this helps you also protect your investment, right? And remember, the IBM Z platform is all about investment protection. So we're telling you, this is what you are estimating, this is your baseline, this is your growth, but you're not using, don't worry, you don't lose it, you can roll it over to the next year. And by the way, you can cancel this with just 30 days notice. I'm happy to say that we haven't seen any cancellations since we launched this program, because once customers go into tailor-fit pricing, they really realize the value that it has, how important it is to support their business, and they're actually growing even more than they expected. So speaking of customers, here is some feedback that we have received from them. Like I mentioned before, it really helps to optimize cost because clients can now align those unpredictable demands to how they're utilizing the platform and what's the best way to run their applications. It really encourages growth. Again, has to do with predictability, has to do with the spikes, has to do with workload that initially you don't know how it's going to behave, or maybe even facing unseen situations where there will be extra demand and you couldn't predict either. It allows our customers to innovate more because now they have the tools to innovate more, they have the means, and they have that predictability that will allow them to try new things. One very, very big thing for us is price transparency. And with tailor-fit pricing, as you can see here, clients can really just leave all the capacity available on and really pay for what they use. And they can clearly see how that correlates, what they're using and how much they're paying for it. So this is pretty much how the cloud works and also allows our clients to align a little bit better with their other cloud consumption workloads. And by the way, because we have this in place now, clients can actually analyze and optimize applications a little bit better. Before, clients were just focusing on the peaks, which were probably necessary at the time. But then they would try to change those peaks just to adapt to the billing pattern. Now, you don't have to worry about the peaks. In fact, clients can see that now they can actually finish work earlier or running some transactions or applications earlier because there are no more limits, because the capping has been removed, because now they know that they will only pay for what they use. So all in all, these are all benefits that our clients are seeing, and this is actually, the feedback that we've been receiving from them in the last few years. So I talk about capping, and yes, this is one of the main things about tailor-fit pricing. When you're talking consumption, there's no capping required. So let us take a look at an example here. And as you can see, what we represented here is a 10,000 MSUs batch workload. Now, without tailor-fit pricing, customers are invariably running in a capped environment. So while they still have hardware available, it's capped, such that processing doesn't go above the capped line, protecting the billing. In this example, the machine is a 2500 MSU machine, but capped at 1800 MSUs. So the 10,000 MSUs batch workload takes 5.5 hours to complete. However, in the world of consumption, there is no need for capping, and so our clients are now free to use all of their machine. So going back to this example, the customer is free to use all of the 2500 MSUs capacity of the machine, with the exact same 10,000 MSUs batch workload on the right-hand side, then processed not in 5.5 hours, but in just 4 hours. Now, this will cost exactly the same, because it has consumed the same amount of processing, and you've got the exact same cost for the exact same job. But with the customer using all of their machine, that same batch window is now reduced from 5.5 hours to 4 hours, delivering real client value and benefits with no additional cost increase. So this is one of the examples that really make tailor-fit pricing so interesting for our clients. Now, I'm sure you're already thinking about, okay, if I remove the capping, if I'm changing how my applications are running, pretty much now some things are going to finish earlier, other things are going to have to execute at different times, or now I can actually execute everything together. How do I manage this? How do I really stay on top of all of this? And this is the reason why it's very important that with tailor-fit pricing, you implement best practices for tracking, for monitoring, for measuring what's going on in your environment. And this is where a tool like IZPCA, which is an IBM tool that 21CS developed for us, needs to be in your system. And so with that, I'm going to now turn it over to Joshua Stiles from 21CS that will show you how IZPCA works with tailor-fit pricing and helps you stay on top of your machine utilization and the billing that now you will be processing with TFP. So Josh, over to you, please.
Thank you, Diego, for the introduction on the benefits of tailor-fit pricing. I think we can all agree with the tailor-fit pricing model. It has many benefits in customer environments versus the 4-hour rolling average. Despite how valuable tailor-fit pricing is, you need a tool to manage it. If you don't have the visibility into your environment and spending, you won't be able to take full advantage of the tailor-fit pricing model. How are you tracking against your allocated annual baseline right now? Do you have a homegrown application that builds these reports? How do you track your MSU consumption from a month-to-month basis? How do you determine which system management tasks are valuable and which can be reduced? With IZPCA, we take all the guessing work out of the equation and allow this process to become more manageable for your team. Let's take a look at our Cognos UI and the different areas of reporting that IZPCA has to offer. For the purpose of this webinar today, I won't go into detail in any of these other areas, but this just shows the plethora of other out-of-the-box reports within IZPCA. The area that we are most interested in today is under the cost analysis folder. So clicking in, we can see that there are two different folders. We have the 4-hour rolling average and the tailor-fit pricing reports. For now, we won't be going into the 4-hour rolling average, but just know that IZPCA does have out-of-the-box reporting to gain insights if that's your current model. For this call, we're sticking with tailor-fit pricing. So once I click into tailor-fit pricing, I can see that there is two different sections. We have hardware and software. To start, we're going to go into the software reports. I'm going to start with our containers annual MSU percentage to date report. This is a good high-level overview of your tailor-fit pricing contract and your environment consumption to date. We are looking at this at a monthly level, but what we can see is we have the percentage used, how much you're entitled to, and how much available MSU you have until the end of your contract. Having this report not only ensures that we don't exceed what we're entitled to with our TFP contract, but it also allows you to effectively track and adjust your MSU consumption based on consumption to date. I have two containers here, WSC and WSCT. Looking at the first container, WSC, I can see that about 71% of my MSU is used of my 10 million that I'm entitled to, my baseline. With the graph, I can see a growth over time for what has been used against what is available. We can also see with the green link that I will not breach my entitlement at any point, given the rate of growth right now and the consumption per month. This allows you to effectively manage your tailor-fit pricing contract and make changes on the fly if you are going to go above your entitled MSU. Now, something of note, in the WSCT container, my entitlement was reached on March 1st. So not only will it give you a forecast, but we also tell you when it was breached. Sometimes the month view is not enough information. You need to be able to drill down to understand what has caused a spike at a more detailed level. So with IZPCA, you can also transition to a daily view. This allows you to see what happened each day and see trends better over time. Maybe there was a certain day where consumption was a lot larger than any of the other days. Having these details help you manage your system more efficiently. Here with WSC, we can see that the MSU consumption continues to rise each day at a positive rate, which depending on your business, this might be completely normal. But what if it isn't normal? How can we drill down to get a root cause analysis of why on a certain day there is a larger MSU consumption than the rest of the days? If you want to truly maximize the tailor-fit pricing model, you need to know what is going on in each container and what workloads or service classes are driving the most MSU consumption. With IZPCA, we can easily drill down into the data behind the tailor-fit pricing reports to get a better overview of what's going on in your environment. As you can see here on the right-hand side of the screen, there's a couple blue links. I'm going to click on the link that will show me the LPAR MSU consumption for this container. This is going to take us into an in-depth capacity planning report. This report here is showing the different LPARs that make up the container and their individual consumption levels. This provides visibility into different LPARs so that you can zero in on which is essentially the problem child. Which LPAR is taking up too much MSU consumption? Here we have a couple LPARs that are taking up the majority of the MSU consumption for this container. Usually that would be a good starting point if you're worried about going over on your MSU consumption, but for the purpose of this webinar, we're going to focus in on the KOSP4B LPAR. For this LPAR, the MSU consumption is a little higher than I would expect given the workloads that are situated here. So I'm going to click on the KOSP4B LPAR here in the lower right-hand corner. Now I'm brought to a report called Capacity Planning Workload Usage Analysis, which will tell me exactly what workloads are running on this specific LPAR. Whether it's your weekend batch or your online batch, we can see how much those workloads are driving the MSU consumption up. Maybe there's a change one weekend where the workload ended up taking more MSU than it normally does. This gives you tangible evidence to go back to your teams and show them what's driving the MSU consumption up and allow them to go do their own root cause analysis. But what if I wanted to give my application or infrastructure teams a little more evidence on why this specific workload is consuming a lot of MSU? We can drill down a little bit further into the service classes. As you can see, there is a blue link underneath the graph that will allow us to go into the service class usage analysis for these workloads. With IZPCA, we have links throughout several reports that will allow you to continue to drill down even outside of the tailor for pricing reports. The report here is showing us all the service classes running on this specific workload and their individual MSU consumption. This data can be used to communicate with your teams and tell them exactly what is consuming MSU. This data will not only help your teams plan for the future, but it will really help take advantage of your tailor-fit pricing contract because now you can see what's driving your MSU consumption, and you can find areas where you can save additional MSU for other workloads. You can also determine whether that workload is adding value, or you can remove it to save on MSU consumption. IZPCA gives you clear visibility into your data, allowing you to make educated and data-supported decisions. But sometimes we need to look at a specific service class to understand what the date is behind it. What's driving the spikes? How can I view this at a detailed level? We're going to drill down into the batch medium service class with this report. We can see that there are two main area concerns here, the average used and the peak used. Knowing where and when MSU spikes occur takes out all the investigation and guessing work. So now you know with certainty what is causing the issue and when it occurred. If that isn't enough data, we can look at the top jobs driving the spike, allowing us to continue our root cause analysis. I'm going to click on the blue link here that says CP job top consumers. From here, I am shown the top jobs that consume the most MSU for a given time period. The main goal for us is to continue to drill down to find what the problem child is. From here, we can see that on a daily basis, one of our jobs ends up being a top 3 consumer of MSU each day. Not only can I look at a certain time, but I can also drill down into a specific hour. So for this example, I'm going to look at a time period between 9 and 11 a.m. on June 3rd. Here I can see during that hour what jobs are running and what their peak MSU consumption was or what their average is. With this level of detail, it gives you a well-rounded picture of what's driving the MSU consumption in your tailor-fit pricing contract and allows you to bring tangible evidence to your application teams so that they can fix the issue and you can continue to have a cost savings approach. Now we're going to move on into the tailor-fit pricing for hardware. Our first report will show us hardware charges. With this report, we can pick a specific KEC in our environment and also a range for dates. At the top, we give you some telemetry data that gives you some quick insights into what is going on with your tailor-fit pricing for hardware contract. So I can see here the number of days that I have exceeded capacity is around 42. We can also see the percentage of days we have exceeded capacity was around 89%. Moving down, we give you a heat map that shows the amount of hours you've been charged and also the days that you've been charged. So we can see here that we spent most of our days being charged, but towards the end here, we have some days where we haven't incurred that charge for tailor-fit pricing yet. So just like with tailor fit pricing for software, we can also drill down into some of the data to see why we're incurring a charge for hardware. So when I click on a specific date, it gives me two options for different reports. I'm first going to go into the hardware consumption report. Again, we give some telemetry data on top. We have your average MSU use per hour and the number of hours exceeding on that specific day. But now we also give you a chance to see what your purchase capacity is and what your activated capacity is. We can also see on the graph below that we have a report that shows the MSU above purchase capacity, and this is where you're going to get charged. You want to know when that's occurring so you can address it before it becomes out of control. To really take advantage of tailor fit pricing, you need the ability to understand what is consuming MSU, and with the IZPCA, you unlock the ability to easily view MSU consumption in many ways, starting from a high-level perspective, monthly usage, moving down to a daily view, all the way down to specific service classes on a specific date or hour. It's the tool you need to utilize and manage tailor fit pricing easily. As Diego mentioned, one of the big benefits of tailor fit pricing over a 4-hour rolling average is it requires less manual labor, but it does require a manageable tool like IZPCA. I'm going to pass this back over to Diego, who's going to wrap things up and talk about next steps.
Thank you for joining us today. Now it's time for Q&A, so please feel free to start asking your questions. I also want to leave you here the link to our main IBMZ pricing webpage. Here you will find all of our existing pricing offerings for the IBMZ platform, including IBMZ software tailor-fit pricing. Also, we have a new offering for tailor-fit pricing for the hardware capacity. And we also have more information on how you can use tailor-fit pricing for your development and test environments. So please feel free to take a look at this material, and then, of course, reach out to your IBM representative in your market or geo, or you can also reach out to me anytime with any of your questions. I will be more than happy to help you consider tailor-fit pricing for your environment. See if, and how this will actually fit your existing workloads and the benefits that you can get from it. We always prepare a calculator, we prepare a business case where we show you exactly what's going to happen when you implement the solution. And so we want to make sure that you really get the best value out of tailor-fit pricing. So please make sure to reach out to myself or your current IBMZ sales representative. More than happy to work with you to move forward with this. And once again, thank you for joining us today. Now we're ready for the Q&As, please.